Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Being Spiritual with me, your host this evening, Ashley Robinson, broadcast live across Spiritual Psychic TV. It's fantastic to be back. First show in about 7 weeks since I had my bariatric sleeve surgery. I'm pleased to report that that went very well, it was a successful operation. Thank you for all of your love, light and healing. And while we're on that subject of love, light and healing, we are aware of one of SPT's finest, Alison, sadly in hospital and in need of our collective thoughts, our love, light and healing this evening. So let's all collectively send healing to Alison and all those that are in need. May they have a full recovery, full speedy recovery. And we wish them well. Folks, it's wonderful to be back with you, be you watching live on YouTube or across on Facebook. One of the things you can do to help us both build the identity and build this wonderful community is share it. So perhaps give that a go now, folks. If you're on YouTube and you want to participate and engage with us in the show, we'd love to hear from you. Do let us know where you're watching the show from. Participate in the live chat by logging in. Make sure you give us that little share now. Share it across your social media channels, send it out to some of those spiritual WhatsApp groups, some of your psychic or even spooky friends. Let them know we're chatting about spiritualist philosophy tonight. On Facebook, it's very easy to share it to your own wall and any groups that allow you to do that. And on Facebook, tell us who you are, where you're watching the show from in the world tonight. It'd be lovely to hear from you. And if you've come back after that gap, you're either really bored this evening on Friday or you're checking out the schedule and you would be back. Either way, returning viewers and new viewers, it is very, very great to have you here this evening. Chatting offline just before we went on, I actually said to Richard how grateful and blessed I feel to have been part of this SPTV experience. I know from talking to so many of the fans of SPTV how grateful we've all been for the channel through difficult times in our life and also through the happy and exciting times, not just through the pandemic and being locked in, but how this show has brought us laughter and how it has brought us comfort and hope with evidence of life after death. And tonight, friends, it's an opportunity to talk about spiritualist philosophy. I also want to talk a little bit about the concept of the shows going forward and some of the experiments we're going to try on the show, because almost always we've chatted about spiritualist philosophy. We've had different subjects and we've had guest presenters, but there has been some feedback that people love it, but they would also like to see some spiritualist mediumship, perhaps some psychic readings. And I think that going forward, it's one of the things I want to thread into the show is do some readings and some guidance as well. Now, stay sure, good evening to you. She was saying that Heidi is unwell and also needs some healing. So as we said to everyone that's in need of healing this evening, good evening to you, Stace. We'll send them some healing and some love and light. But let's do a few more hellos. We'll see where everyone else is watching or listening to the show tonight. Mary Dixie, good evening to Ash and Richard. Mary says, for those that don't know, Mary was one of my circle leaders. Lovely to have her on the show this evening. For me, it's always like being at school and assembly and performing in front of your teachers. It's a wonderful thing to do. Terry, good evening to you. Thank you for welcoming me back, and I am indeed keeping well, Terry. You do a lot of fantastic work for us behind the scenes. Thank you very much. Christine Davis, lovely to hear from you too. Good evening, my friend, watching from YouTube this evening. Lovely Heidi Spicer says, I'm looking good. Thank you very much, Heidi. I'm feeling well, recovering and healing well. Absolutely. Pauline Spencer says she's sending her get well wishes. Well, good evening to you, Pauline Spencer on Facebook. Natalie Bentley says, looking well. Good to see you back. Healing sent to Alison too. Well, thank you, Natalie. Thanks for joining us on Facebook this evening. Kerry, good evening to you, Kerry Farmer, sending best wishes to everybody. And Nicola Humphreys sending healing to Alison. Good evening to you, Nicola. Welcome this evening, my friend. Eileen Black, good evening to you, Eileen Baker, sending positive healing prayers for Alison. Thank you for doing that, Eileen. Lovely to have you with us this evening on Facebook. Lovely Chelsea Westcott from Vancouver, Canada, shared and liked. Thank you, Chelsea. Fantastic to have you on the show. Tish Pollock says, hi, Ashley. I've not seen you before. Hi, Tish. I don't think I've seen you before either. It's lovely to have you with us. So we're chatting spiritual philosophy tonight, Tish. If you've got any questions, anything spiritual or psychic, do let us know. Nicola says she's watching the show from Florida. Wonderful, beautiful part of the world. One of the things I was saying to my family, part of my long-term objectives from healing is I would like to be able to fly out to Florida, maybe have some of that Disney experience, be able to get on a plane without a seatbelt extender, and perhaps go on some of the roller coasters at Disney with my kids. So that's my 5-year market. And my dad, Ray Robinson, says hello from Mum and Dad. Have a great show. Mum and Dad are grandparenting this evening. They've got my son Ethan with them. I know he was looking forward to watching the show. So hello, son, as well. Jody joins us on Facebook. Jody Tolly Butler. Good evening to you. Hello, Jody. Joins us on Facebook. Sarah Lou from Wales. Not seen you before. Hiya, Sarah. Great to have you and watching the show. So again, yeah, get some of your questions, and we'll have a couple of subjects we go to, but you can pretty much ask Ash anything. The lovely Kelly McKeaton says, "Big love to all. I've shared, but for some reason it's gone to Fumbalinas." Hello, Kelly, and lovely to see you on YouTube this evening watching the show. The lovely Susan Tucker. Hi, Susan. Welcome from Rhondda Valley, South Wales, watching on Facebook. Healing, please, for my daughter. I thought that was Rwanda, first of all, Susan. But yeah, Rhondda Valley, slightly different experience, a very different experience, South Wales. Wonderful to have you with us this evening. Healing for your daughter needed, absolutely. It's on its way from me and others. Thank you. Jessica Cat, Scissor Hands. I don't know if that was the name you were born with, but it's a pretty cool name, Jessie Cat Scissorhands. Well, lovely, Jess, and joining us from New Mexico. Lovely, I love the sunflower. Kimone Rayner, hi to you, joining us on YouTube this evening, Kimone, or Kim1 Rayner. One of the things you'll always get with me, folks, is someone with dyslexia and terrible short-term memory. I'm going to read off them what I see. You don't get much of the thinking speed. Diane Tyra, first time watching from Liverpool. Hiya, Diane. Sarah, watching from South Africa. May you have some guidance. Sure. Sarah, we'll try and give you a bit of upliftment this evening with our spiritualist philosophy. We're not doing spiritualist mediumship tonight. We certainly will be doing that in 2 weeks' time. And of course, every Saturday night on SPTV, you'll have a great variety of different meetings. Wonderful Julie Caswell. Good evening to you. Julie and I have been planning, folks, behind the scenes for our spiritual and psychic weekend retreat in October. We're going to be doing one of our experimental seances, and we're going to attempt to contact some of the old and famous spiritual ambassadors. So I know lots of you watching this show are actually joining us in Stratford-upon-Avon in October. For people that want more information, head over to SPTV UK, look up some of the information, or spiritseeker.co.uk, and watch that space continually for updates on future joint events over the next 12 to 18 months. Mary Hurley, first time seeing you. Good evening, Mary. And I think there was another name that flashed up a minute ago that I might have missed, but sorry if that was Kim from Belgium. Hiya, Kim Diaz, wonderful producer here that keeps in tune with my short-term memory. Thank you, Kim. And Mary joins us from Maine, USA. Mary Greenlaw. Good evening to you. Crystal Brown Moores, Nova Scotia, Canada. Hiya. Lovely to have you with us on the show tonight. That's a lovely name as well, isn't it? Crystal Brown Moores. Good spiritual name. Natalie Rogers. Hi. Good evening to you. Welcome. Lots of new names tonight, folks. It's great to have so many new people joining the show, and I do hope that those of you joining for the first time enjoy the show. Stay throughout. So throw in your questions. You can throw them in any time, but certainly by about 9 o'clock, folks, we usually turn to your questions. If you get any burning questions about anything we've said, throw them in, and I'll either try and answer them there and then, or producer Richard will do a good job of bringing them up as a summary from towards the end of the night. Kim loves my shirt. Thank you, Kim. My universe shirt. Yeah. Hype. Hopefully we're feeling a bit spaced out. Crystal says that she's been told many times my name is a spirit name, and I'll have to look into that. Yeah, I mean, obviously, Crystal, you won't meet many spiritual or spiritualist people that don't have some sort of crystal in their life. But yeah, just as I read your name, it's quite nice. And as spiritualists, for those of you like me that may have been baptized as spiritualist, as well as having our birth name, we get given names from Spirit as part of a spiritualist naming service. It's something that I've really loved doing and seeing at my church. I think lots of you that have been here before will know that I've been training to be an ordained minister within spiritualism. I'm pleased to say that I've completed almost all of my formal training now. I'm in the final stage of assessment as a spiritual counsellor. Leslie Moulton and Daniel Edmonds, that are often on this show, some of our tutors at Women in Church, are going to be marking some of my case studies for that. And I will be able to do some baptisms as well as weddings and funerals and stuff at the church. But as a first, I think certainly in the UK, potentially the world, SPTV UK will be broadcasting a spiritualist naming service on Sunday, the 11th of September. And it's going to be my son Oscar. We have his spiritualist naming service at the church in Wimbledon. And as part of the divine service that Sunday, we're going to broadcast that. So put that date in your diaries, folks. It'd be a great opportunity on the Sunday morning to see what a spiritualist naming service is all about, and opportunities for those of you in London to come and visit the church another time and put yourself in for a naming service. It's something we can do at our spiritual psychic weekends, and maybe just maybe we'll have a way of doing virtual or online naming services on SPTV UK. So your spiritual name can have a lot of significance. Often comes from what people might refer to as guardian angels or guides or ascended masters, or sometimes a loved one. So yeah, do some research, Chris. So that's lovely. Well, it's about 8:15, folks. I think I've done most of the hallows now. And if I've not mentioned you specifically by name, hello and welcome to you. And I say welcome back for those that have come back for a bit of spiritualist philosophy, and those that are joining us new. Hopefully we'll give you a good show tonight, and I'll be able to answer some of your questions. There's a little reading that I felt inspired to give, and originally the reading I was going to give, I'm actually going to say for another day, but I'm actually going to read the introduction to one of my favorite books. Jessica says, would love to know more about you and what you do since I'm new here. Well, Jessica, you'll certainly get more of that, but I'm Ash. I'm a South London based spiritualist, medium attached woman spiritual church, and tonight is about philosophy. It's often but in my humble opinion, sort of philosophy, what I believe to be true. But if you head over to SPTV UK after the show, you'll see there's a directory. My bio is on there, as are most of the hosts and presenters and mediums. And you can also find more information about me, folks, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, at Ash Robinson Medium. So it'd be lovely to see you on that platform. So this evening, folks, is a book that I've read from, I think, on this show before. It's written by Harry Edwards, who was an incredible spiritual healer. My grandfather used to say that, in his opinion, he was the best spiritual healer since Jesus in terms of what he was able to do. But Harry Edwards was also a fantastic spiritual tutor, and he wrote lots of books about developing mediumship. And one of my favorite books is called Life in Spirit. Life in Spirit. I'm actually going to read the introduction to the book. So I'm not going to read from it, but I'm going to read the introduction, because when I saw it again tonight, it had a real impact on me, and it's inspired me to talk about what I wanted to talk about. So it's a very short paragraph that I'm going to share with you. And just listen to this, folks, and then we'll have a chat about what Harry Edwards was saying. It's a very far cry from a piece of almost purposeless protoplasm floating in a primeval sea millions of years ago to a very purposeful sperm, one of several millions on any intercourse occasion, trying to fight its way along a hazardous journey to fulfill its destiny to fertilize a female egg. The story is more amazing when one recalls that every one of the millions of sperm contain within it the chromosomes and genes, the seeds of inheritance, which will determine the nature and the character down to the finest detail as to what the color of the hair or the eyes will be, whether the new person will be tall or short, kind, gentle, or the reverse. And lastly, perhaps, whether the victorious Mr. Sperm contains an additional chromosome which will determine whether the coming child shall be male or female. This is a wonderful story, and as one delves deeper into the study of all that it implies and that which will develop from it, we have a wonder of creation, which renders to almost nothing human wit and wisdom. But this is not at all. As this book proceeds, the endeavour will be made to establish firmly beyond dispute that man is not only a physical being, but is a spirit being as well. Thus, he is not only a member of the physical dimension, but equally a part of the dimension of spirit. So it is when one marries these two dimensions together, it creates potentials for study that extend far, far beyond the most fertile human imagination. The purpose of this book is to go a little way, as far as we can, along that journey. It will be established that humans are akin to spirits in this life now. And once this can be accepted into the mind of the human body, then we shall see that solving of these age old problems that have caused so much suffering, anguish, and poverty. And so that's the introduction to Harry Edwards' book entitled Life in Spirit. And I've read from this book before. We read about the start of incarnation, the start of being a human being. And we also read about the nurseries in heaven and what happens to children and spirit. And I say, because I've flicked through and I've well-thumbed sort of guide, my little scrapbook of things I like to read from it, I'd almost forgotten about that introduction. But I love the simple way that Harry puts quite complex things. And what he does throughout his teaching and his philosophy is start to merge the world of science and religion. And you start to get into metaphysics, but at a very, very plain English and simple level. And I think the more plain English and simple that you start to think about these, the more powerful the understanding and the interpretation can be. So I wonder if people have got any questions about what I'd said. But we often talk, and a few of you are saying, nicely, you've not seen me here before. What is it we all about? Well, as a medium, when I'm giving evidence, I always say to people, I'm going to attempt to give you evidence of life after life, evidence of life after death, death being a change. It's how we describe that change. We call that change death, but it is a change for the personality, which in is itself energy, has a life after the life it's had as a human being. It's all about that spirit being. Some people may call that the personality, because if you were to look at a human being and a corpse, the difference is the presence or absence of that personality, that spirit being. And as a spiritualist medium, so I believe that personality is what communicates. They asked them to give evidence of who they were when they had a life and an incarnation as a human being. Now, Martine has just said, I'm born with Claire's love and respect, heaven, and the other side dearly. I'm not entirely sure what that means, Martin. If you want to add any context to that, that would be appreciated. But the opportunity we have, I suppose, with our human being senses, working through the clairs. People often talk about mediumship as clairvoyant, seeing or hearing spirits, clairaudient, hearing spirits. Clairvoyant, I think, is clair seeing, so seeing spirit, and smelling spirit, feeling spirit, all of that absolutely possible. Diane says, I can't understand how someone could say they're psychic, either they're born with their give or not. Well, Diane, actually, I believe everyone has the opportunity to work with the gifts of spirit. Psychic and spiritual or spiritualist mediumship are quite different. And everyone has slightly different interpretations. For me, in plain English, psychic is not working with a communicator. I'm not communicating with someone that lives in that place I call heaven, the spirit world. Psychic for me is working with energy. It's working perhaps directly with you, an exchange of energy. It's perhaps working with an object that you have touched. It's perhaps working and looking at your aura or the colors or the things I feel or smell or see. And a psychic sort of reading works on that level. Whereas mediumship involves a communicator from the spirit world. Now, I know that the spirit world aren't particularly fussy about this, and the spirit world will work with absolutely everyone. In order to do that, the more we practice, the more we practice our attunement, the more we practice our discipline, the more formal understanding we have of this, the easier it is for spirit to come forward and work with that in that way of clairaudience, clairvoyance, and mediumship. Whereas psychic, some people are just naturally gifted. Diane, if I said to everybody, right, grab a piece of paper now, and we're all going to draw a house. And in fact, folks, let's just do that as a mental exercise. If you've got a scrapbook of paper in front of you, then by all means do this. Otherwise, just imagine it in your mind's eye. And the reason I say we don't need the physical paper is I'm just going to hopefully prove an experiment based on your feedback. But within your mind's eye, I want you to imagine the shell of a house. Now, we're going to work in 2D dimension, so don't have to think about any sort of complex graphic design and 3D imagery in your head. Just in your mind, imagine a blank canvas or a blank piece of paper. And I want you to draw the shell of your house. You know, is it square? Is it rectangle? Is it a totally different shape? And as you're looking at this in the 2D, now add a roof. I'm going to say add a chimney. Within that, add a front door, add 2 windows on the first floor and 2 windows on the ground floor. Let's think about a pathway to that front door. And as the pathway leaves the house, it meets a garden wall. Okay, so hopefully you've all done that. And I'm just going to give you now that gift of free will. And you can comment in the sidebar. But did you put the chimney on the left-hand side of the house, right-hand side of the house, in the center of the house? I'd be interested to know, just to see all the different varieties. Who put the front door in the middle of their house? Who went for something symmetrical? Who put it to one side? Who put it in a little porch and had a little lean-to? With your 2 windows, if you went for something symmetrical with a front door in the middle, are your windows either side? Or did you just draw 2 onto one side? Let me know. Your windows on the first floor. Did your house finish at the first floor? Anyone add any window frames or curtains? For those of you that got as far as drawing the path, is it a straight path? Curvy path? Anyone add some details, some flowers? Now, if any of you are playing this game and commenting in the feed, thank you for that. Thank you for Stace, chimney on the right-hand side. We'll start to see the different sort of comments coming in. Now, if I said I now want you to all upload as a comment your picture of your house, which you won't be able to do because most of you are doing this in your mind's eye, they're all going to appear totally different. Now, there'll be those of you that are naturally very gifted artists and have drawn on a pretty amazing house. Some of you will have a nearly identical version of a 2D house in your mind that I had in mind. Was that collective consciousness? Was that you picking up at a mind's eye level my vision and interpretation of the house? Was it a pure coincidence? Was it the stereotype? Others will have done it quite crudely. And if I got you to physically draw it, some of you would have used pencils, some of you would have used rulers, some of you would have done sketches. Some of you might have gone into 3D anyway. Some of you might study adding details and door numbers or door furniture. My point is that we are all naturally gifted. Some of us gifted more. And at a psychic level, and we were trying to work perhaps a little bit at a psychic level there by me trying to transmit and you receive too, some of us would have been better at this. But the fact is, we were all hopefully capable of either drawing on paper or drawing within our mind's eye through the power of imagination. Now, if I said we're going to repeat this exercise in 6 months, go off and train, some of you could go off and you could take artist lessons. You could learn to draw. You could make sure that you were better prepared and had more of the materials you like to work with. Some of you might have liked to have free drawn on digital pads. Someone there talking about their cottage style with the winding path. Yeah, very, very similar to mine, that Susan Tucker. Thank you for sharing. So the fact is, working at a psychic level, we are all capable at a psychic level of doing something, but we can practice, we can invest into ourselves, we can develop this, we can sit in a circle. I mentioned Mary Dixie. It was one of my circle leaders. And you tend to, like a piece of fruit being grown, not fall too far from the tutor tree. I've had the advantage of sitting in free formal circles, plus lots of open circles and open platforms. And you always get a bit of that from your circle leaders. Amy sharing her square house, chimney right side, windows either side, black no curtains, front door, sends a wiggly path to the wall. Thank you for playing along, Amy, sharing. So we all had that ability. And at a psychic level, we all have a psychic ability. Once we start putting evidence to it, and if I was to say to you, which I'm going to do now, my house was oblong with a very simple triangle roof that went to the top. My chimney was on the left-hand side. I actually put a bit of smoke coming out. My front door, right in the middle, with rectangle windows either side and directly above them because I like symmetry. But my path was winding, the winding path to a garden gate and a wall at the front. That was my element of symmetry. And some of you would have had very, very similar. Some of you would have drawn this from experience, drawn houses before. You maybe grew up as kids drawing houses. Some of you might even be architects and graphic designers. Some of you might have drawn your house. So the fact is, we all have an ability. We can practice, we can develop. Similar with the gift of mediumship, we all have the ability to feel spirit, be influenced by spirit, listen to spirit, hear spirit. But the more we practice, and Harry Edwards used to call it attunement, like a radio, the more we practice tuning in, the easier it becomes to build that link. And of course, from a more formal side, there are opportunities to develop a real routine for this. I don't know how many of you have a driving license and you're able to drive your car, which in theory means you can drive a car anywhere in the world. But there are local laws on which side of the road you can drive. You have to pick up on local highways and laws about speeds and what signs mean. But we all have that professional accreditation if we're driving a car around a driving license. It's a license to operate a vehicle. And as a medium, our license to operate as a medium or as a psychic can be developed informally. It can be developed by sitting in circle, attached to churches in the UK. One of the biggest organisations is the SNU, the Spiritual National Union. I'm accredited medium with United Spiritualists. We have standards there around mediumship, as do the Greater World and the Spiritual Association of Great Britain, the New Christian Society of Christian Spiritualists. Lots of these organizations take their own standards and their own principles, and they come up with a policy which governs like an umbrella. And so this influences what we do as a psychic, and to a certain extent, it influences what we do as a medium or as a psychic. So for those that found my Facebook page at Ash Robinson Medium, it says Ashley Robinson, Spiritualist Medium. It's a label. I like it. I'm proud to call myself a spiritualist medium, and by putting that up as my title, I'm telling the world that I adhere to the standards of spiritualism as a spiritualist medium. You'd have to go much further into my page, as I've just said, to know it was part of United Spiritualists. People within United Spiritualists, in general terms, refer to themselves as spiritualist mediums. Some people call themselves spirit mediums. Within the Greater World Organization, they call themselves messengers. Within the New Christian Spiritual Association, and in fact we've got a new show with Reverend Nick, I think it is, for some of you that have seen that. They have different titles within their organization. These are all labels, human labels, and standards and principles that some people claim to have got from the spirit world, others to claim them themselves. But there is this human desire to put labels on things. So hopefully the point I've been trying to make is, yes, we all have the ability to do this. Some of us have added more detail and had more of an imagination. Some of you might have been really trying to pick up on what I was sort of sending out there to draw your house. But it just goes to show that we could do this, and we could do it again. And in fact, if we ran the experiment, you now have the advanced information and intelligence of knowing what my last house was like. If you wanted your house to be like mine, perhaps now you know what my house is like. You want it to be the absolute opposite. So hopefully I've sort of covered there the difference between psychic and spiritual, or spiritualist and mediumship, clairvoyance, clairaudience. Over the next year, I'm planning to give different types of messages, different types of guidance. Probably going to start at the next show in about 2 weeks' time. And the idea is, throughout the spiritualist philosophy, I might give more practical examples. So I might give a spiritualist message from a communicator where I give evidence. That's what we tend to do on SPTV on a Saturday night. And indeed, I'm one of the book mediums in a couple of months' time for SPTV UK. We have a wonderful show called Collective Consciousness with Bill Hughes on SPTV UK, where he has different mediums. People call them psychic mediums, spirit mediums, spiritualist mediums, and they ultimately all work from the same communicator from that place I call heaven to give messages. We might do some color readings, and I'll ask people to give me some colors, and I'll give you a reading. Other times I might give you the colors. Perhaps we'll do some flower readings. I'll get some fresh flowers and I'll pick a flower and see who I'm drawn to. Perhaps we'll look into some cards. We did a wonderful show with the Queen of Cards, Miss Rose Anderson, and my mum at the church last year. We spoke about oracle cards, angel cards, tarot cards. We interviewed the lovely Kate May on the show. We spoke about astrology and tarot and the concept of destiny and the cards understanding part of that journey, helping us to make options. And a lot of this stuff and the advanced information we have, the investment we make into ourselves, gives us the opportunity to do something or nothing with it. Because everything I tell you, I share with you as the truth as I have come to know it, truth that has been evidenced to me. But it is still just my honest, humble opinion. You can do whatever you want with the information. You can ignore it. You can contradict me. You can certainly challenge me. You can say no, but you could also respect me. You can embrace it. You can think, oh, I like that. And maybe if you'd like that, it's because this isn't the first time you've heard it and you're hearing it again and you agree with it. But we all have these opportunities to get involved in doing that. My second cousin, a lady called Sophie Parker, I'm going to invite her on the show even a couple of weeks' time, or certainly over the next couple of months. And she has been studying art. And her final sort of subject that she looked at was around faith. So she got in touch with the spooky side of the family, the spiritualists, and she had her first couple of readings. One of the things she found with her art is that she was starting to draw things which she was aware wasn't coming from just her imagination. She was aware of the eye in her mind. She was aware of the blank canvas, and she started doing inspired drawings and doodles. She started doing things which, as I was delivering mediumship for her, were absolutely in line with what the message and the communicator was saying. There was an element of collective consciousness there. So I might get her on the show to talk a little bit about her art and her inspired art. I'm looking at a wonderful picture which was sent to me a couple of months ago by the lovely Helen Rogerson. Now, Helen Rogerson is a very gifted lady. Herbal wellness products, meditations in nature, channeled art mediumship is where I first came to know her. She's been on SPTV, and at the Mind, Body, Soul, Spirit Fair we did back in May, I think it was, Richard, down in Portsmouth. Helen was there doing some of that channeled art mediumship, selling some of her products, and she felt inspired to share with me this wonderful drawing, and I really loved it, and I feel a real strong desire to want to work with Helen. So with Richard's permission, we're going to have Helen on the show. And we might even do a couple of experiments where she draws as I talk and give some of these readings, and we'll see what her channeled art transpires and what could be within that artistic work. So I'm really looking forward to the way that the show will evolve. At a core level, we're always going to have a foundation of spiritualist philosophy, because this is about being spiritual. But while the feedback to Richard is you'd quite like to see more of my mediumship as well, then I'm going to give what some of you have asked for. If you decide it's not what you want and it's not the direction you want it to go, then again, this is an interactive show. Give us that feedback. Tell me or tell Richard, so we have an opportunity to deliver what it is you want on your Friday nights. But I'm very much looking forward to that, and I'm very much looking forward to putting some of the spiritualist philosophy into a bit of tuition. And if I get my cousin Hannah on the show, what we might do, folks, is advertise it certainly in advance, as we'll encourage you to bring your own notepads and your own doodle pads. Perhaps we'll open a little predicted prayer, and we'll make sure we close and ground ourselves at the end, and we'll have some inspired art which we can all draw ourselves at home online, and we can then either upload it into comments on Facebook or share on the SPTV fan page afterwards, and we can have a lovely little conversation about that. For those of you that come to SPTV quite a lot, you'll know that we have our development and fledgling evenings often on Zoom. So all sorts of opportunities, folks, over the next year, and I'm really excited that you, as the virtual congregation of Being Spiritual get to play the role of designer. So I'm going to move on to something in a little bit, unless there are any specific questions that came in. I know a lot of you sharing about the drawings, which I think is nicely proved that they're all different and we all have different natural ability. And, you know, if any of you did do a physical drawing, yeah, upload it to the SPTV fan page, and we can talk about each drawings and the things that are different and the things that are the same. Because, you know, one of the wonderful things in spiritualism is just how inclusive it is. You know, if diversity is the differences between us and the similarities, if equality is making sure that we all have an equality of opportunity, so we all have the same opportunity, and inclusivity is just the opportunity to make sure that that doesn't always mean treating everyone the same. I think within spiritualism we have this amazing inclusivity. Susan Tucker says, I love spirit communication messages, and I'm also interested in physical mediumship and trance. And you do get bits of that out of the show. We've had a couple of shows where we spoke about physical mediumship, so do head over to YouTube or Facebook. Look for the playlists, Susan. We interviewed Phil Shaw probably about 2 months ago. We spoke a little bit about the different types of physical mediumship. For any of you that live in London, England, Phil Shaw and I are doing an evening of mediumship and transfiguration, an experimental evening of mediumship and transfiguration. I always say experimental because you never know if anything's going to happen. Very often it does. But the tickets are for sale on SPTV. You can head over there and see some of the events. Julie Caswell says, Ashley, Ivy May did part of her degree called Finding Faith. She had spirit help her similar to your cousin. Yeah, it's lovely, Julie. And I've seen some of Ivy May's products. In fact, this evening was reminded of one of the pamphlets she did on the symbol. And folks, I've spoke often about the different guides that influence me on my philosophy. And I even made fun of the fact for those of you drinking alcohol on a Friday night, we'll play a drinking game. And every time I mention the name Ralph A. Steadman, you can take a sip, because Ralph A. Steadman was a wonderful friend and tutor. And he inspired a lot of my philosophy while I was alive. In the later part of his life, and I believe he continues to do so from the spirit world. He chairs what I refer to as my executive committee of guides who all sit around the table. And Ralph was one of the people who reintroduced the concept of the symbol. Okay, so I'm just going to hold my hands up like this. There's an entire show we could probably dedicate to the symbol. Here it is, different ways depending on which device you're looking at. But you recognize the symbol within religion already as the praying hands or court bow. Because the symbol which Ralph was inspired to tell us about was a symbol that has been around an awful long time. Opportunity of building up energy and intention, and ambition, building up perhaps the energy between the hands, of understanding that there is something greater than ourselves and surrendering to that will. And Ivy May did a wonderful leaflet. She'd heard the Ralph Steadman speech on the symbol, which is still on YouTube. Actually, we filmed it on a very old camcorder and uploaded it on the days when you had to record it onto a VHS tape. If we've got any young viewers, probably anyone under 40 won't even know what a VHS tape is. But I remember then having to capture that on a video grabber card onto a computer. The entire process took about 10 hours to get it off this camcorder and onto YouTube. But on YouTube, there's only about 3 or 4 things on the sister account of Wimbledon Spiritualist Church, which is called Mr. LAD Promotions. LAD stands for Life After Death, but Mr. LAD Promotions, and one of the first things we ever uploaded that was the Ralph Steadman talk on the symbol. So you may want to go and have a read of that another day. And a fascinating man. Apologies for the shoddy film work of me as a much younger man and not using anything digital. But it's understanding all these things that have been around us for such a long time, seeing how they can influence us, how they can be of use. I spoke about my son's baptism, which is a naming service, which is going to be broadcast live from our church in Wimbledon. What won't be broadcast live is afterwards, we're going to the local Catholic church. My wife is Catholic. She's also a spiritual healer, but she would call herself Catholic. That's the religion that she refers to as her faith. And my kids go to a Catholic primary school, so they're going to have a Catholic baptism after the spiritualist service. And when they're being taught to say their prayers, often they talk about putting your hands together. And I think that it's something that religion has understood for a long time, that when we are sending out love and light, we believe in the power of prayer, just that bringing the hands together and focusing and looking to send some energy out. Within healing, you'll often see open hands towards where they want to send the energy. Even in Hollywood, when they talk about witchcraft, or even Harry Potter with his wand directing the energy to where it's needed. And I think the concept of the symbol takes the praying hands that step further, builds up that energy and sends it back out. Yeah, really quite lovely. So, folks, if you've got questions on anything that we're talking about, please do throw them in on YouTube or Facebook. Otherwise, the last thing that I'm going to talk a little bit about is just a little bit more sort of definition around the spirit world. Now, Eileen says, I've watched trance and also have been told I will do trance, but it's never interested me because the ones I've seen seem fake, sorry to say. And for those of you that are regular watchers of SPTV, our producer Richard dedicated a couple of shows to mediums, fraudulent mediums and psychics, and looked at photographic evidence of potential or alleged physical phenomenon. And despite me being brought up within spiritualism, the thing I've always been told to do is, well, first of all, look for the supernormal explanation, then look for how it could have been achieved in terms of those results. And one of the sad things is, despite the fact that almost everyone's armed with a digital camcorder, digital phone, a digital camera in some or another, we don't capture as much so-called evidence of physical phenomenon as we used to. And I would like to have thought we would. There's a lovely bloke called Malcolm Robinson who we had on the show. He was the founder of Strange Phenomena Investigations. And I sort of said to him this question, some of the questions and evidence within his lectures around UFOs or poltergeists. These are really old photos from the 60s and 70s. And with everyone now, with the ability to take a quick camera, why is it we have less? Is it that, if we're capturing pictures of aliens, is it they've moved on? Is it that spirits don't respond to the same way to digitally captured images as other things they do? But, Eileen, going back to your that, there is absolutely different levels of attunement. And as a medium, we sometimes go through a dozen different flavors or variety of mediumship, depending on how close the communicator gets. But 9 times out of 10, I think most people would describe their mediumship as traditional when they are in full control of their body and their mind and their voice. And what they're doing is they're either acting as a physical medium, they are listening, hearing, feeling, sensing spirits, and as a medium and interface, they are relaying or interpreting what they get, which is what I do through most of my mediumship. Sometimes when spirit come enormously close, actually, I become less interference for them. And as an interface, I just start saying what they're telling me. And I go from saying things like, I've got a man here claiming to be your grandfather called Derek Robertson. That's my grandfather, by the way, to actually talking on behalf of the communicator. So the mediumship standards change. And when spirit get even closer, the bits of their personality come through. When they get closer again, their voice of the medium can change. And it can be their physical voice box that's being used, but it can change. There is direct voice phenomenon. Very rare, but does still happen, where the medium isn't using their voice box at all, but their body is channeling the noise of the communicator. Indeed, that's even been channeled through things like funnels or cones, which have sometimes even floated or materialized in the air. At another stage, people can start to produce almost like a mist, often through their nose or their mouth, sometimes from their hands and fingers, and that mist can start to be manipulated like clay. And when I do the experimental evening of mediumship transfiguration, Phil Shaw may not go into trance at all, or he may go into a very light level of control where that mist starts to produce, and certainly in different lights, red and blue seems to be quite impressive, the mist starts to resemble the communicator. and you see that mist start to change. And then right down to sort of, the real deep levels of trance, where the mediums have surrendered themselves fully to the spirit being, and they're even able to produce things like ectoplasm. And some of the photographs of ectoplasm almost look like white sheets, pouring out of people's noses. And they were very famous people, sometimes famous because they were arrested, like Helen Duncan, and charged, one of the last people to be charged under the Fraudulent Mediums Act and the Witchcraft sort of Act, as they believed that she was fake. I mean, by all accounts, the evidence she was able to produce from the spirit world was quite incredible. And one of the reasons they wanted to lock her up was to shut her up, because she's revealing secrets from the War Department. But some of the photographs look dodgy. Now, here I am, 2022. I've been out today. I've taken loads of pictures of my kids, and I've uploaded them straight to social media. And when I look at a photograph which had to have been developed, and there's me going, well, it doesn't look right, it looks like sheets. You also have to then read the witness statements of the people in the room. And when the witness statements say, yeah, but that sheet, Ash, I put my hand through it and it was a mist. It wasn't a sheet, trust me. Other people, it was such a long time ago that they're not alive. So if you've experienced that type of physical phenomenon, folks, share your feedback in the chat. Let us know what you've seen and what that's meant to you. Martine said that she found out that her maternal great-grandmother is her guide now. She had clairvoyance. I have clairsentience, clairaudience as the strongest clairs. Spirit is remaining. There are many guides, and each soul on earth is unique, no label. It's a lifelong learning. Learn more every day, and every soul is unique. Sharing love and light is important. Afterlife as well. Martine, that is beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing. And I think it's great that your great-grandmother is one of your guides. One of the first guides I ever became aware about was someone I knew. It was my godfather, a lovely man called Bob Brunton. He still works with me delivering mediumship now. And for years, I sat in circle, assuming he was my only guide. And as I developed more, I realized I'd actually had a guide with me since birth. And I believe that all of us have at least one principal guide that are with us from our first point of conception and then incarnation as a human being. That guide is there until we return home to that place I call heaven. And I thought, well, Bob must be my principal guide for my mediumship. And I realized that Bob was part of the team. I started to meet other guides. One guide I know, he sits on this executive committee. I refer to him as Bear or Running Bear, because his parents saw a running bear when he was born in what we would now describe as America, in Virginia. And he's actually my mediumship guide. And then, because I got that in circle and I learned more about him as a guide, for him to say, well, that was just my last incarnation. That's just the identity, because you're fascinated with it, Ash. I've given it to you. There's another guide I work with called Sai. Sai was in what you would describe probably as an ancient man. He last incarnated on Earth 4,000 years ago. Ancient medicine man in sort of Mongolian times. So all of those things absolutely portable. But again, as human beings, we love the labels. So I think if you've got friends and family that knew while you're alive, it becomes a brilliant and natural instinctive interface. So that's, yeah, thanks for sharing it. Kerry says, so is a baby born with a guide if they're a natural born medium psychic? Yes, Kerry. And I think everyone is born. In fact, I think everyone is conceived with a principal guide in mind. Someone who resides in what I refer to as the spirit world or the spirit realms, and they dedicate their entire spirit's life from the moment of earthly conception to incarnation and right through to that change we call death and when they return. And they are there with us all of the time. And actually, some people would describe this as like their Jiminy Cricket. For those of you that know the story of Pinocchio, Jiminy Cricket that sat on the shoulder helping Pinocchio know the difference between right and wrong. I think the guide is there to do exactly that. But actually understanding there is a guide there and how that influences our intuition and our instinct and our gut feeling. When we don't know where to go, left or right, to zig or to zag, to jump or to duck, that guide is there. And it's just about being aware that they are there. But some of the more natural mediums and psychics that work with these skills, a lot of that depends on their upbringing. I believe it is possible for babies at the point of conception. If we rewind a little bit to the point of preconception, there are spirit beings that start to think about their destiny as a human being and their incarnation. And I do believe they have the opportunity to perhaps decide where they're going to be born. and perhaps to their parents and their family. And perhaps they've already met that guide and they're going to meet again once they incarnate and conceive. We spoke probably about 3 months ago about the spiritual nurseries, where, for want of a better words, nurses within heaven come together, put their hands out at the point of conception. The spirit being, the spirit self, starts to fuse as that, in biology terms, as that sperm fertilizes the egg. All of that life, all of it as it starts to grow over the 9 sort of earthly months and the work that's being done in the spirit world. So, Kerry, hopefully that answers your question. Again, if you go back to the playlist, there's a show dedicated to meeting your guides and another show all about your guides. We did a little guided meditation where you can go to a stone circle and you can use it as a meeting place and you can get to know more of your guides. These are great questions, folks. Do keep them coming. If we go quiet, I'm going to share the final thing I wanted to share about the spirit world and the spirit realms that we were just talking about now. Okay, right. So I can't see any more questions coming in now. So just in the last few minutes before 9, I'm going to share something else about the spirit realm as taught to us by Harry Edwards. And then we can ask some questions perhaps about that. Oh, Cynthia managed to get a question in just before. All mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. Big difference. Oh, yeah, Cynthia McDonald, yeah, put very well. I think all mediums can be psychic. Whether or not all mediums know the difference between psychic and mediums, I think it's probably a big question. I've certainly come across people that don't know, perhaps because they've not sat in circle or they're just not aware and they understand that they have a gift and they work with it. Other people very quick to say the difference. Psychic Sally, who's got a bit of identity on telly, never refers to herself as spiritualist or mediumist. She talks about herself being psychic and her being gifted. So yeah, I think that's a nice statement. Right, is there a spirit realm? Well, I believe the answer is yes, but let's see what Harry Edwards had to say. One cannot give positive physical evidence of that which is beyond the domain of physical life. Our wonderful computer brain cannot receive and register information that is beyond its measure of acceptance. One cannot explain to a person totally blind from birth of any colour, for the simple reason that the brain has no knowledge of, nor can it appreciate a verbal description of that which is completely outside its capacity of registration. We shall not finally know whether there is a spirit realm until our time comes to leave this phase of life and enter into the spirit phase, should there be one. Thus, there can be no positive, demonstrable answer to this question apart from logic and experiences which are factual, and I claim there is a great abundance of both these experiences. We know our galaxy exists, and it immensely bewilders our conception of space and time. Other galaxies can be discerned, and therefore we accept the fact that they exist as well. They all belong to the physical dimension. In this life, if we try to take one step out of our dimension of life, we cannot experience anything about it, for it is not out of this world. A very wise doctor once appeared with the author on a television program when films were shown of psychic surgery and practiced in the Philippines. In these, the Filipino healer was able to make an incision with his finger into the patient's body and to place his hand inside it, withdrawing a growth of some other fleshly substance. When the surgery was completed, the healer would take his hands away from the body and the apex was seen to be healed over without any sign of it being opened at all. There was no sign, and yet on the film the body was seen to be opened. There was blood, and the actual growth, or whatever the offending substance was withdrawn. The fleshy substance was available for inspection, and this wound healed up as if by magic. There was not even a seam in the skin where this opening had been. The doctor, observing this, said, "I have seen this, but I cannot believe it, because if I did, It would be counter to all the knowledge and experience I have in medicine and surgery during my lifetime. I dare not accept it. Let my instance a case in my own field of work, that of spiritual healing. The patient has an affliction, and this could vary from a malignant tumour to a totally paralysed limb, the total loss of sight or hearing, and so on, all of which has become completely incurable to medical science. The finest medical brains can do no more for this patient. Human wit, and dare I say, intelligence, is at an end. The patient is doomed to die or to live with the affliction throughout the rest of their life. Because of the hopelessness of the medical diagnosis, the patient is no longer receiving any medical treatment, apart possibly from unlimited pain-killing tablets. He then seeks help from a spiritual healer, with the result that his affliction is completely taken away from him and his full health is restored. There must be a reasoned process behind every state of change, and to enable one to appreciate this means by which the change in the patient takes place. It is necessary to consider some very definite and undeniable truths connected with changing states, whether of the mind or the matter. Every change which takes place, every movement in the state of matter, results from low governed forces applied to the subject. There is no exception. We witness this in the evolution of matter, the courses of the stars, germination, birth, death, the atomic formation of an element, the operation of the known forces of electricity, gravity, and so on. Physical science is based upon the appreciation of certain laws. Otherwise, there would be chaos or scientific anarchy. The truth which cannot be denied. From this, we shall study the further postulates upon which the healing of our incurable patient depends. The fundamentals. God created the perfect laws which govern life. The postulates which follow are dependent upon the fulfillment of these laws. Every change in the universe results from the application of law-governed forces. Nothing takes place by chance or without a reason. It is the operation of law-governed forces that induce change. For any state of change to be purposely effected, intelligent direction is needed to administer the law-governed forces to the subject. Example: man must direct the force of electricity to produce a given result within the laws which govern that force. The correct administering of any force requires intelligent direction. In spirit healing, the intelligent direction of healing or another force originates from the spirit realm. A diversity of so-called incurable human ills, from mental sickness to cancer, from nervous breakdowns to a cataract, from blue babies to arthritis, are successfully treated by spiritual healing. This denotes that the directing intelligence is able to diagnose the cause of affliction and to determine the correct character and strength of the healing force needed to remedy each given condition. In healing, the directing intelligence is able to ascertain that the cause of the disease and knows how to administer the remedial force to induce a state of beneficial change within the patient. Now, the book would go on to describe some of the laws in more detail. But I thought, as an introductory to "Is there a spirit realm?", followed by a statement saying "There is, but I cannot prove it," Harry Edwards then takes us on a journey of laws and forces which are governed by them. He talks about intelligent direction. And friends, we know that everything that science can prove is made of atoms, energy. We know because science prove it. We cannot create energy, we cannot destroy it, but we can change it. Death is a change. Birth, conception, incarnation is a change. Understanding how that energy changes, the opportunity to attune with that energy, my knowledge relies on the fact that atoms themselves, knowing that they are energy, knowing that atoms themselves contain particles of energy, which in themselves are intelligent energy. We as the human being and the combination of all those matters that make me Ashley Robinson, with that intelligent direction, that ability of attunement, that for me is what proves life after death. And although we've been on a journey where science and religion walked off in different directions, they've been walking the circumference. They're coming closer. And science will come to a point where it will effectively prove life after death, whether or not they will want to or not, and whether or not they will claim it. But with their understanding of those laws that govern that, they will come to a point where the science will be able to prove that there is no death, only change. And then perhaps it's down to us with faith and understanding and sharing our knowledge of how we use that information. Because I don't think that certainly in my lifetime, we will ever get to a point where everyone thinks and believes exactly the same thing. We live on a planet now. We're going through the same experiences, but we all interpret them in different ways. So that's probably enough of me reading from Harry's book, Life in Spirit. And I do hope I've inspired you to ask a couple more questions before we finish. But what we're going to do in a moment is we're going to take some adverts, and it gives you the time to ask your last couple of questions, because we'll be finishing up, folks, in the next 10 to 15 minutes. I'll wait for producer Richard. Let me know that the adverts are ready. But Susan said, okay, I think we're going to do adverts now, folks. And then Susan Tucker, I'll come back to your point. So get those questions ready, folks.
MySpiritualDirectory.com is one of the fastest growing online free listing service. Our search directory offers geolocation feature, rating ability, review system, map location, customer comment, YouTube video, gallery, social media sharing, direct contact with the lister, simple online booking and payment system. It's free to register and use. It even creates your own mini web page, which you can update at any time, and yes, it's still free, no monthly or yearly fees. 100% free. Creates your own profile page. Add social media and other links. Add a mini gallery and a YouTube video. Rating, reviews and comments. Includes online booking and payments. So, if you're looking for a medium or a reader, even a church, maybe a healer, or any other spiritual service, then visit myspiritualdirectory.com.
My Spirit Life is a free online interactive magazine for those who have an interest in improving their spiritual lives. Authors can upload images, videos, and audio clips to their own articles. The public can place comments, rate the article, and follow the author. All articles are vetted before being published. For more information and to place your own article, please visit myspiritlife.co.uk. Tomorrow night from 8 p.m, SPTV is joined by another guest who will be demonstrating their mediumship abilities by offering free readings to our viewers. This Sunday from 11 a.m, Wimbledon Spiritualist Church hosts the Divine Service, with online and on-location readings.
Hey folks, and welcome back. Do let us know either in the live chat this evening or back over on the fan page. What do you think of our new adverts and transitions? I mean, there's so much going on across this platform, and hopefully you've just seen just how much you can find on the website there. All those amazing things going on, wonderful magazine, and all of this is available to you for free. Now, there's always the opportunity to become a VIP, a patron of SPTV, and contribute towards the show. But this channel has a guarantee to produce this amazing content for you for free. All of the people working on the show working under that concept too. So help us build our community. Share the concept with folks. Head over to the website later, see what the website can do for you. Now, Susan Tucker, you said no one should ever underestimate the power of healing from the divine. What a wonderful statement. And, you know, I can say from my own personal understanding that without a doubt, spiritual healing has helped me. It's helped me after a major stroke 15 years ago. 1/3 of the brain cells killed on the left-hand side of my head. And when I didn't die, and they had no idea what caused the stroke, my neurologist said spontaneous recovery. That means there was no human intelligence involved in your recovery. And that is almost the exact phrase used in Harry Edwards' book when he asked medical definition of the impact of spiritual healing. Spontaneous recovery, no human intelligence involved. Of course, human intelligence involved in perhaps the direction of that force. And absolutely, my surgery 6 weeks ago, healing and recovering really well. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit scared and overwhelmed. That's the human being in me, not surrendering fully to the divine, but it helped with my mental as well as my physical. So, thanks, Susan. Great question. So last 5 minutes, folks, probably last 4 or 5 questions. You can ask me anything. You can ask me a question about something we've already covered this evening. All is welcome. Eileen says she believes in spiritual healers. She had a healing working on her. They had her eyes shut, her head going backwards 3 times. I asked my sister what he was doing, and she said, pulling something out of my head. That was amazing. And thank you, Eileen, for sharing your experience. It's a wonderful ability. And almost every major religion in the world talk about the power of prayer. And healing. We started the show this evening, didn't we? By sending out positive thoughts. And intention. Absent healing, also enormously powerful. Jess says, is it true that some mediums can't communicate with their own loved ones who have passed? Yeah, absolutely. It's we're not DJs, Jess. We can't take requests. And one of the puzzling things is that you often have no direction over your communicators. So you can work with your guides, and you can do lots of meditations. You can go to meeting circles, and you can start to understand more about your guides, and you can spend that time in meditation, and you can want people to come forward. But if you just want to chat with your nan, like I used to while she was alive, and I want to do that while she's in heaven, it's enormously difficult. I can't just summon my nan. Sometimes me thinking about her, and particularly when I dedicate a element of service or something I've done out of unconditional love, when I dedicate it to my nan, I often feel her much closer to me over the next 24 hours. So I did this recently at the church. I did some work at our church at Wimbledon, and did it out of unconditional love, and the fact my mum and dad asked me to do it, but unconditional. And I dedicated it to my granddad. I was actually working in the Derek Robinson Garden of Remembrance, and I felt him enormously close to me over the next sort of couple of days, and particularly I went out the church. So yeah, sometimes we can have sort of potluck with this, but yeah, there are mediums that never get messages for themselves. And it's very rare you'll find a medium that doesn't sit with a medium to get a message. In fact, as mediums, we love getting a message. We're sometimes terrible members of the congregation. We break all the rules, and we're so excited to get evidence. We want to give that feedback to the medium. We end up feeding them information. And it's a golden rule. You're never feeding information to the medium. They tell you what's going on. They don't ask you questions. They tell you what's going on. They give you the evidence. You say yes or no. But it's a nice thing that we were able to do for each other. And yeah, it's good to be able to read. It's sometimes hard to read the mediums I'm relatively well known across SBTV now. I often talk about my family. I talk about my granddad. So if I was to go for a medium, if they were to bring through someone claiming to be my granddad, there's so much that they could just know about my granddad. They have to work that much harder to give me proper evidence, so I know it really is my granddad communicating. Other times, when communicators come forward, you get a glimpse of them. Bill Hughes' show, I think Thursday nights, Collective Consciousness. 2 different mediums, same communicator, and you start to blend on that information. I do a lot of double demonstrations of mediumship with a guy called Ivan Lee. He's the vice president of Women's Spiritual Church, a fine medium in his own right. And often when he's delivering mediumship, I'm sit there and I'm aware of his communicators. So actually, it can be quite a nice sort of uplifting thing to go forward. So yeah, nice question, Jess. Hope you don't mind me shortening your name there. Good question. Right, what do we have next? Oh, I was just having as a mate of mine who died in spirit. He died when he was about 18, and he was just saying, I wonder if she knows Edward, because you're Scissorhands, aren't you? And he's talking about Edward Scissorhands, another old film from the 80s and 90s there. But yeah, spirit and their personalities is still mischievous. Thanks for that, my friend Dean, having a bit of a laugh there. Right, Eileen. When you do share your experiences, you can get ridiculed. You can do. It's one of those things. I mean, I'm 40 this year, Eileen. I've been brought up in spiritualism. It's only within the last 22 years ago, I sat in my first circle, and I only started doing the stuff online a couple of years ago. Richard encouraged me to do more of it, and I think that's the human ego. You worry, like lots of kids. I was bullied at school, and you don't want to be bullied as an adult. You don't want people to make fun of you. At school, I used to get embarrassed when my sister spoke so proudly about my mum and dad, chasing ghosts like Ghostbusters out of people's houses when things went bump in the night. And I was embarrassed by it because I didn't want people that didn't understand it to make fun of it. Some of those people I went to school with now walk into my church and go, Ash, because of what you've been putting on social media recently, I've been inspired to come to a Women's Spiritualist Church. Or because of what you shared on Instagram, I checked out SPTV and I'm really interested in this sort of stuff. And I think I only started putting some of the spiritual experiences on my private social media probably within the last 5 or 6 years. And it was almost 10 years ago that I started telling people more about it. My dad, who you just saw on the advert, who does the Women's Spiritualist Church, he's our minister there and president. He gave an address once at one of our spiritual psychic weekends, and he wore a Chelsea shirt. So for his 50th birthday, we brought him a Chelsea Football Club shirt, and he said, when you follow a football team, and he was a Chelsea fan, you put on your shirt, don't you? You tell the world when you're out in the high street, I am a football fan. I'm a Chelsea football fan in particular. When people perhaps are voting in the elections, they stick up posters on their houses. But when we talk about our religion and our faith, and although I don't believe the vast majority of what they're saying, when you get someone knock at your door, Mormons and Book of Jesus Christ and things like that, and they start talking, I've got to admire them. I've got to admire people that are so strong with their faith. They turn up on Saturday High Street and start telling you about their religion without that fear of being ridiculed. I think it's quite incredible. And over the years, those people have inspired me to do more and to share these experiences. And I'm very blessed that on SPTV, the wonderful community, we don't tolerate trolls. Our admins, Alison, Terry, and others, snap them out pretty quickly. Richard's on top of it. We're lucky to have such a great tech producer that knows what he's doing to keep out some of the lowlifes. Other times it's fear. But I think being prepared to share an experience is amazing. So thanks for sharing that. Nurse who cares. But if you do have recurring symptoms, please consult a doctor. I'm guessing that was something about healing. And absolutely, there is no replacement for that. And, if you're lucky enough to live in the UK, I think we've got one of the best healthcare services in the world. Healing is something which is absolutely compatible with healing. But people that have studied and gone to medical school, we must take their steer. You'd never get a spiritual healer that's been endorsed by a proper organisation saying, don't take medication or don't have treatment. But healing can often work in absolute par with physical treatment. And in that example we gave from Harry Edwards, he was effectively talking about patients that had got to the end of that treatment. So yeah, Nurses Who Cares on YouTube. I assume that was I missed the first couple of comments, but hopefully I've grabbed the context of that. Okay, let's take another question in the last few moments of the show, if there are one. Yep, Susan then. So I spoke to two ladies whose bodies were riddled with cancer. I had spiritual healing, the other Christian healing, and both were miraculously cured of all cancer. Hospitals couldn't understand. So wonderful example of spontaneous recovery. Another time, perhaps, we'll talk about cancer in particular. And Harry Edwards, who I say was an amazing healer, often spoke about the challenges of cancer because not all cancers are caused by the same thing. So very, very difficult for him. Friend could well be a guide. Absolutely, Kerry. And folks, I think we've run out of time. If you haven't had your question answered, I'm sorry. Perhaps head over to the fan page and tag me on that, or head over to Ash Robinson Medium on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, any of those channels. Find me on the directory, SPTV UK. Head over there anyway. Check out the website, folks. It's absolutely fantastic. For those in London, you'll see that I use the events page myself. We're hosting lots of events at the church. We're selling tickets on SPTV. It's a wonderful platform. Any of you are running churches or centres, you don't need to be based in London. You could, in theory, be based anywhere in the world because anyone with PayPal can pay for a ticket. It's all digital. It's a wonderful service that we have in spiritualism to be able to use SPTV UK for that. And of course, it's a great little advert. it's such a great website, and there you are. It's free advertising. You put your tickets on there. The people that are buying the tickets are paying for the service. All of that is then going back to your church centre and charity. Mary Dixie says, thanks to me and Richard. I'm very grateful to producer Richard James. Thank you, sir, this evening. I've had a great first time back after several weeks out. Terry, wonderful lady, thank you for doing what you do, folks. I do hope you've had a good show. Give us some thumbs up or love arts if you've enjoyed this. Like the stream on YouTube. Stacey says it's been informative. Remember to share the stream. You can do that afterwards. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be bookmarked, folks. Tell people what you thought of the show, and tell us what you thought of the show. We want to make this as interactive and exciting for you. Love to you too, Kelly McKeating. Good night and God bless to you all.